Hello everybody, Interintere back again with another video. Today's video, guys, I want to talk about why Roger Federer has more difficulties against Novak Djokovic nowadays and the last couple of years than he has against Rafael Nadal. Because it is very easy to answer just to say that, yeah, Novak is a better hard court and better grass court player than Rafael Nadal. Novak is a better fast court player than Rafael Nadal. Yes, we all know that. That is the easy answer. Of course, Novak is a better fast court player than Rafael Nadal. Yes, absolutely. But what is the technical things and what is the tactics and what are the styles why Novak is giving Roger much more trouble nowadays? Basically, guys, in my opinion, it is because of Novak is a more offensive player than Rafael Nadal. And when I say offensive, I'm not saying necessarily that Novak goes more for his shots or that Novak does more winners than Rafa. That is not what I mean necessary. What I mean is that Novak he relies more on his he wants to dictate the match more than what Rafa wants. He wants. I don't know how to explain this. Basically, he plays much more closer to the baseline what Nadal does. And if you guys remember when Federer defeated Rafa in Wimbledon 1 month ago, and then they asked him about the final, of course, which Novak Djokovic was waiting him on the final. And they said, and then they asked Roger, "What do you think about that match?" And Roger's answer was like, "Yeah, Novak is the world #1 for a reason. It will be a huge challenge to beat him, and he has a similar style like Rafa. He's very solid from the baseline, but the difference is that Novak plays much closer to the baseline." And that's it, guys. There you have it. Roger Federer, of course, he knows this. He doesn't know just to play tennis. He knows to analyze tennis as well. And of course, to analyze his opponents that he has faced 10 to 15 years now, and Novak is one of them, of course. So, and that is the main thing. Rafael Nadal, he plays just not as offensive, not as close to the baseline like Djokovic does. Now that's the thing that Rafa has to change, in my opinion, to be successful and to start beating his two biggest rivals, Djokovic and Federer, because it is working for him to stay 2 meters behind from baseline. It is working for him to not take too many big of risks. It is working for him to play loopy balls with this kind of, or maybe even higher, net clearance over the net, but he has to just flat it out against Federer and against Djokovic. He has to take time away from them. I remember when Novak plays Rafael Nadal, when the matches gets real, and 1 day or 2 days before he will face Rafa, he has gotten questions, and like the tennis players always do when they will face an opponent, and they used to ask Novak, what is the key to defeat Rafael Nadal? And he always answers like this: the key is to dictate the points. The key is to not let him dictate, to make him run left and right. Because if you let Rafa dictate, then you will be in big trouble. And Novak is, of course, very intelligent. He knows that. And when Novak, because I don't know, guys, if you have noticed this, but when Novak plays against other players who are not Federer or Nadal, he is not super offensive. Because he knows that he can beat them by not playing super offensive tennis. Because to play super offensive tennis is not Novak's style. Novak is not Roger Federer. Roger Federer is the more offensive tennis player. He's more offensive than both Djokovic and both Nadal. Roger Federer is the player who uses the first strike tennis best. So Novak is not that kind of player. But Novak, he tries to be offensive against Federer and against Rafael Nadal, especially against Rafael Nadal. He doesn't want Rafael Nadal to dictate the points because he knows that if Rafa dictates the points, then Novak will be in big trouble. So that's the big difference when Federer faces Djokovic and when Federer faces Nadal. Nadal makes life a little easier for Federer by standing back 2 meters, by not hitting, by not returning very deep. If you see Novak's matches against Federer, it is unbelievable how good Djokovic can return. And in that Wimbledon final, he actually didn't return amazingly good. He really didn't. First time he braked Federer, I believe it was in that fourth set. So Novak didn't have his best return day in that final, but he won anyway, which is his huge strength, to win when you're not at your absolute best shape, which he wasn't that final in my opinion. He did, because he almost lost. We all know that. It is not any news. He just was 1 point away of losing. And the reason why he was so close of losing, because Novak was not at his best. Especially, he was not at his best with the returns. But he did, in the end of the day, what was most important, and that was to win the big points. And in the end of the day, guys, you know that because in tennis, it doesn't matter who wins most points. Federer has won many times most points in matches, but he has lost the match because he has not won the most important points. In tennis, it is all about, especially when it is close, who wins the most important points, who wins the big points, break points, set points, match points, etc., etc. So that was what Djokovic did in that final, like we all know, and that's why he won. But if you consider if Djokovic was at his absolute best, of course he was not, especially not with the returns. But in general, Djokovic is a great returner. We all know that. He is, in my opinion, the greatest serve returner of all time. So, and if you look at Novak's returns, and if you look at Rafa's return, there are really big difference there. Rafa, he doesn't punish you with the returns. Rafa makes a lot of returns into the play. Yes, I know that. But he doesn't, Rafa's returns doesn't penetrate like Novak's does. Novak, he can do a winner immediately in the returns. He can do a winner both if you serve first serve or second serve. Rafa doesn't do a lot of winners with his return. Rafa just wants to put the ball into the game and then start the point and try to win the point after the return has landed. But he never his intentions are not, at least not very often, to make immediately a winner on the return. So that is a difference between Djokovic and Nadal, and that makes Rafa makes Federer's life much easier with that kind of play, because Federer will not lose the point immediately. He will not lose the point. He will have a shot to play forehand, and to play backhand, to play slices, and to go to the net, and etc., etc. But against Djokovic, he can lose the point immediately, because Djokovic is a much better returner than Rafa. Then when the points are also in play, Djokovic is standing closer to the baseline. You can easily see with your eyes. He stands much closer to the baseline. Rafa, not so much. Rafa, in my opinion, he plays almost clay court tennis and hard court tennis and grass court tennis almost exactly the same. He doesn't do much changes. He tries to be little more offensive on hard court and grass, but it is not with much, my friends. It is not with much. So that is Rafa's big issue. He plays tennis on clay, hard court and grass, more or less the same. 2 meters behind the baseline, and it works against other players. Because Rafa, he wears them down with long brutal rallies, and they cannot handle Rafa from the baseline, and they are not good enough to make Rafa pay for Rafa playing two meters behind the baseline. But Djokovic and Federer, they are not any regular players. They are not, like I said yesterday, Djokovic and Federer, they are not Fognini and they are not Medvedev. We all know that. Djokovic, to compare Fognini and Medvedev with Djokovic and Federer, it's like comparing a Ford with a Porsche. Can we compare the cars Ford with a Porsche? No, we cannot, guys. Of course, the Porsche car is much better than Ford. And the same is with Federer and Djokovic. They are much better tennis players than Fognini and Medvedev. So that is the main reason why Federer has much more difficulty against Novak Djokovic than what he has against Rafa Nadal. Basically because Novak gives Federer much less time. Novak takes time away from Federer because Novak plays more closer to the baseline. Novak is more offensive on the returns, and that is not the case with Rafa Nadal. And for Rafa Nadal Rafa has to start playing tennis like he did in 2010 and 2013 US Open. That is the best Rafa. If I could choose one Grand Slam tournament that I have seen Rafa Nadal as best, outside French Open, we'll leave it French Open, we're not talking about clay now. If I could choose one Grand Slam tournament that Rafa has been the best Rafa that I have ever seen in my whole life, it has to be, without any shadow of doubt, the US Open 2010. Rafa was outstanding that 2010 tournament. Guys, don't forget that Djokovic was good already then. He really was good. He defeated Federer just in the semi-finals in US Open when he saved those match points, like we all know. And then he played against Nadal, but Nadal was outstanding. That is the best. The 2010 season, for me, it is the best Rafa Nadal year in his career. He won 3 Grand Slam titles that year. That is the only year that he has won 3 Grand Slam titles in a season. So, and that 2010, he was serving exceptional. He was. I have never seen Rafa Nadal serve that kind of way. He served so hard. He did so many aces, and he was playing so offensive. It is a different Rafa Nadal 9 years later now. I'm not saying that Rafa is bad. Absolutely not. He's still good. He's still good, guys. He played Australian Open final. He played Wimbledon semi-finals. But to be able for Rafa Nadal to beat his 2 biggest rivals again in the slams outside French Open, he has to start playing more like Novak Djokovic, more closer to the baseline, more offensive on the returns, deeper, harder, flatter with his ground strokes. That is my opinion. And that is the reason why Federer is having easier times against Rafa Nadal nowadays and what he has against Novak Djokovic. Because Novak Djokovic plays much more closer to the baseline, returns better, harder, deeper than what Rafa Nadal does. And Novak Djokovic takes time away from Roger Federer, which Rafa Nadal is not doing. That is the main reason. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Take care and bye bye.